And we're back. This is Elliot and Jose coming to you from Dreamland Comics in Schaumburg, Illinois. Thank you for joining us here on CCW TV, the Comic Culture Warrior vlog. Video vlog. Because actually CCW does now have a blog.
Yeah.
So we can't.
I just want to I want to add something to what I just said about Invincible. I said that the dinner sequence in the last issue of Invincible was better than anything Michael Bendis has written in the last 10 years. I would also like to add that dinner table sequence was better than anything Jeff Robe has ever written in his life. I just want to throw that in there.
Wow, better than the Long Halloween?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, we got a little, that was another thing a commenter had said on the blog, that us naming the Golden Lobe Award was kind of a dick move.
That was Dad. That was the same guy.
Was it the same guy?
Yeah.
I thought it was a different guy. Kind of a dick move. And you know what? I kind of agree.
I agree, too. But I'm going to go on record, because we say this in the comments all the time. I liked Loeb back when he was doing like Long Halloween and Dark Victory and that trilogy of books, and I liked his Superman for All Seasons a lot. But what's he done for me lately? Nothing.
And if you really want a really good Bendis book to read, pick up Fortune and Glory from Oni Press. I just read that. And
it's only been out for like 15 years.
No, it's been 15 years, but this is classic Bendis that I enjoyed. And in fact, there's a bit in there that I think Bendis needs to go back and read, because there's this whole passage when he talks about when he was adapting Jinx for a screenplay, and how the screenplay was just way too long because he fell in love with his own words. Those were his own words. He fell in love with his own words. He thought he was trying to be too clever. He fell in love with his own words.
That's kind of creepy.
I want to say, Bendis, you need to go back to that. You need to go back to economy and storytelling, because
those are the best stories that he tells.
Those are the best stories that he tells. When he's within certain he's confined. Mm-hmm. He's in a box and he has to work in that box. And I tell you myself, as a writer, you know, that's a challenge. Sometimes it's very difficult not to fall in love with your own words and just keep going. In the last issue of Ash Saves Obama, I had a 3-page conversation between President Obama and Rahm Emanuel. Now, if you read Ash Saves Obama number 4, that was 1 page. And you know what? I only needed 1 page to do that whole sequence. But I had originally wrote it as a 3-page sequence because I just fell in love with the the banter, the West Wing type dialogue I had going there. I was channeling Aaron Sorkin at that point, and really in reality it just sucked, and I needed to cut it down.
I could have told you that.
And another thing, this just came up to me. Back to
it's like this. It's like these entire series of videos are just nothing but last rants.
Nothing but last rants.
Jesus.
When we talked about, there have been several comments on the board about Greg Rucka's writing on Detective Comics, and how Greg Rucka's writing isn't as good as the artwork. Okay?
Yeah, I wasn't having an argument with Ben Wonder, but he did bring that up, and I understand what people are saying about that, but you have to understand that Greg Rucka's writing on there. They said that it was. They said it was like better than good. They said it was solid, okay? Which is true. The writing is solid, but how many comic books do you have that have even solid writing in them anymore? Hardly any.
And another thing too.
And on top of that, you have the art.
And the quote unquote solid writing is they're doing based just on the dialogue. That's it. That's all they see of Greg Rucka's writing. Greg Rucka works full script. Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking, not only does he write what the characters say, he describes what the characters do.
Exactly.
So he plays a big part in those visuals that J.H. Williams comes up with.
Because now I'm thinking about it, Rucka doesn't really use captions at all in those comics. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's all through that. And that is really, really challenging. Yeah. And when you are working with an artist the level of J.H. Williams, and you don't want to, just waste him, you've got to step your game up. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who say that Greg Rucka's writing is, so-so, folks, unless Greg Rucka is unable to write a script that J.H. Williams is able to fully, embellish and explore and depict, illustrate, now you're talking about bad, okay writing. So, try writing an effing comic book script and see.
And you look at the art that he gets from J.H. Williams on that book,
it's
right?
incredible.
And you see what he did with Nicola Scott in that Blackest Night, how he just raised her game up too. So
exactly,
that's a sign of a good writer too.
Yeah, the writer and the artist, it's like you're working together and you both want to raise your game.
And a couple of things that I found out, I guess, since our last segments of videos, since we haven't taped in like 3 weeks, I guess somebody commented that Nicola Scott is taking over Wonder Woman in March.
That would be okay.
Which
cool.
I haven't seen the solicitations yet. I think they're online now. But I usually don't look on them online. I usually look at the previews, but we don't have previews yet because there's no comics this week. But also, J.H. Williams is done with Detective. I don't know. Did you hear about this?
No.
They were supposed to do 12 issues total. What was going to happen is first 6 issues is done. Then Jock is going to come in and do the Greg Rucka story for Batwoman. And then J.H. Williams is going to come back to do 6 more issues. He's not coming back. What they're going to do is they're going to launch a new Batwoman comic. And they're going to use those last 6 pages as the first...
The 6 issues.
6 issues, yeah. I meant. The last 6 issues are going to be the first 6 issues of the Batman or Batwoman series. So cool. Batwoman's getting her own series, and Greg Rucka and J.H. Williams are going to be working on that.
Awesome. Good news. All right, so I just had to address that. Last Days of American Crime is a serial, an issue. Well, I don't want to say it's an OGN. It's
a prestige format.
Prestige format. Wow. Yeah, you're right. It's a prestige
square-bound prestige format
from Radical Comics. A first issue of 3 by Rick Remender and Greg Tocchini, depicting what, quite frankly, are the last days of American crime. When I first walked in, I know Jose asked me to read this because we wanted to talk about it here in the show, and I did. And I gotta say, I have some mixed feelings about it. One thing is, I can see why Marvel wanted Remender to write Punisher. You know?
Right.
I wish I could see more of this Rick Remender in the Punisher book.
Well, right. Unfortunately, Jason Aaron already was given the Max book, months and months ago. 6 months ago. I think Remender might have been suited for that. Well, either or. They both could have written for it. But his first story arc on the Punisher was good. I liked it.
It was good.
It wasn't enough crime in there. It was more of Punisher dealing with that superheroes or supervillains coming back to life. Now this whole Frankencastle thing, he's just being wasted on that story. It's a decent story. It doesn't belong in the Punisher book. It should have been like What If, or it could have been like a Halloween special.
You know what it is? They'll reboot it afterwards, and then they'll collect it in a trade, and then people will be like, "Oh, yay, right." But anyway, not to take off on a tangent, but Last Days of American Crime. Prestige format book through Radical. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, Radical is one of those independent publishers that are getting more names. I don't understand why this isn't. I mean, no disrespect to Radical, why this isn't running under under like say even the DC banner. I could see this being something that DC does, as a prestige format thing. And kind of opening their audience.
Yeah, this doesn't really feel like a Vertigo book, though. This really, I mean, I think that maybe why he is that. I mean, there's actually an interview in the back which I didn't read. I'm really bad because we were reviewing this and I read
the interview in the back. Yeah,
but it feels like it's just a gritty independent book, and I think that he can do whatever he wants under this label and tell the story that he wants without having to deal with any bullshit.
That's true, but So I always remember Rick Remender for Captain Dingleberry, so that's the first thing he did.
Well, I think the first time I read his stuff was Fear Agent, and then the End League. He did End League too, so.
Okay, so what is going on? The United States is kind of under martial law right now. They have this thing called the frequency, or the signal. It's something that the U.S. government is going to be transmitting over U.S. airwaves
in 2 weeks' time.
In this story, which once it's transmitted, people will be incapable of committing unlawful acts. So you're talking about complete mind-altering technology that they're using. And since the criminals have found out about this, they're basically, they're committing every crime they can to get as much money as they can so then they can get the fuck out of Dodge, leave the United States, go to Canada, Mexico, wherever, anywhere else where they can in turn just continue living the lifestyles that they're accustomed to.
And another thing that's going to happen in 2 weeks' time is that cash is no longer going to be accepted in the United States.
Right. The cash money is gone. Everyone's going to have basically like a link card.
Everyone's going to have a link card, and every transaction is going to be traced. Every transaction is going to be taxed.
Right.
There's going to be and they do make a point.
Book of Revelations stuff, man. Book of Revelations, yeah. And you have these interesting characters. In the very first page, you already see how things are going to end for our protagonist, or it teases how it's going to end. We're really not sure. And then it flashes back. Here's the thing, though. The issue of the signal, that whole thing, I didn't understand that until I read the part in the back.
Yeah, because, I still didn't really understand it. I know that I figured that they would just get into it more in the next issue.
And if there's any flaw to this story, it's that for this being a setup, I kind of think Remender gets a little too clever for his own good. He does some clever things with the characters. He's shuffling people back and forth. And he also has way too many subplots going on. I mean, if you ask me, because here's the telling thing. First, you have your protagonist who gets involved with two other criminal types, and takes him, God knows why, takes him back to his home where they can meet his mom, who, while she's befuddled and senile and demented or whatever, she's in dementia, you would never expose a part of yourself like that to potential competitors. Okay, and then he still has some other stuff going on with some previous guys that he's dealt with who want to kill his mom. And
but that gets resolved by the end of the issue.
No, because if you read the synopsis for the end of this book,
I didn't.
When you read the setup for the following issue, it is one of the most involved synopsis for a setup to a next issue ever. I'm not going, oh God, I got a headache reading it. It was just so much going on here. Remender kind of needed to start stripping things down a bit. And there are a couple things with the artwork. I mean, the artwork starts really strong, but then as it goes on, something happened. I couldn't recognize the characters all the time. And
really?
Yeah, and then there's an issue here. There's this whole sequence when they're in his trailer. And his two partners in crime, one of his partners in crime who has ADD, starts fiddling with something in the background, and suddenly all these coins start falling.
Well, no, he's saying that it was a machine.
I know, but it's like the storytelling isn't that clear because then the coloring gets kind of muddled and stuff. You're like, what's going on here?
I followed it perfectly.
I'm just saying for some, and I mean, I think I kind of have a trained eye for sequential art.
Yeah,
I was having
All right, here's the thing: you had to read this pretty quick so we can review it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was able to read this thing a couple of times and look through it.
See. Okay.
Because this is one of those books. First of all, it's 48 pages of story.
Right.
48 pages. I mean, you get a big chunk of the story, and it is kind of the stuff that it is kind of the art, the type of comic that you do want to look at, and you do want to look at every panel, and you want to kind of see what's going on, and you get a better idea of what's going on.
Yeah, but then by skimming it, you should be able to have a sense of the story. I mean, don't get me wrong.
You do have a sense of the story.
There are some sequences here that work really well. Okay, the switcheroo with the girl.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking, okay, there's something going on here. I'm sorry that we're being kind of vague here, but you really should read this so you can get... We don't want to give away the surprises here, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of twists.
There are a lot of twists and turns here.
Yeah. Here's just some of the art.
The artwork is very lush. It's mostly painted digital coloring.
Mm-hmm.
The pencils themselves, I think, are kind of spare. But it is a gorgeous book. When you go from one scene to another, the coloring palette changes.
Yeah.
And there's some really cool action sequences in here. And I'll tell you right now, this is a book intended for mature readers. Okay, there are graphic depictions of violence and sex, and so I can't recommend this for teenagers who live in somewhat Puritan households. But again, I don't want to poo-poo the book, but no, this is where I know where you say Remender got to do this book on his own without a whole lot of editorial fudging.
And maybe that might have been one of the problems.
One of the problems could have been that an editor could have said, okay, you can tighten this up a bit. This isn't entirely clear. You know, this
well, you didn't have an editor on this book.
Yeah, but see, with Radical, I mean, there's some companies where the editor is just there proofreading everything and letting the talent do everything.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's a bad philosophy. I'm not saying that's the wrong philosophy. That's how some companies get certain talent to work for them, saying, look, come to us, you do whatever you want. You know, so that's fine. At the same time, as we said with other creators, like Brian Bendis, that editor is supposed to help you keep focused on things and keep the ship going in a straight line and not letting you veer off too much. Mm-hmm. I think this book probably would have benefited from a little more focus. That's just my opinion.
I can't really argue that. But this is one of those things that it was... I mean, you get to meet the character Graham like right away, and it does do a really good job of setting up who this guy is and kind of what his deal is and the kind of people he hangs out with. And then the whole thing with his mom, though, him bringing his two the two hackers that he's wants to. We never really explained to you what the hell this book's really about.
Well, we gave him the gist of it, but still,
what it is that this guy Graham is hiring two people. Because, like we mentioned before, cash is going to be obsolete. He actually works in a bank or some type of bank where they monitor transactions.
Right.
What's going to happen in the place where he's working, where he's a security guard, they're going to take the cards and people are going to hand in their cash, and then they're going to credit or debit the cards with them out and get rid of the money.
Right.
So he needs these hackers to help him pretty much take all the money there.
Right.
So it's a heist, is what it is.
Right.
Futuristic heist.
Right. It's a futuristic heist, and it explores a lot of the same conventions that other heist movies have. The thing too is that they have to do it on the day that the signal is being transmitted, because that's when all the security systems are down. It's like when you're transmitting the signal and you're rebooting all these systems, that's when the government system is going to be most vulnerable.
And that they also is that they're going to have a lot more security.
A lot of physical security.
Physical,
are going
exactly.
to be there. Right.
So who normally don't work there because they need to guard the money, and that's why he can bring these two people in with him, because they would just be seen as more guards.
Right. No one's going to question, why are these two people here? Because you're going to have lots of faces that you aren't.
But then we find out there's a fourth person involved who is not in this issue, or as far as we know.
Yeah, it's a fourth person who, okay. I think my writer mind is starting to work here as to who that fourth person can be. Mm-hmm. Okay, that might be something that Remender is obviously setting that up. That could explain some of the issues I have with this first issue. Okay. So anyway,
see, I know exactly what you're thinking.
Yeah,
see, that's why I didn't have a problem with it, but I guess you just weren't there yet.
Okay, all right. I'm a little slower on the uptake. You're saying?
Well, I'm saying I've had this book 4 or 5 days, and I was able to read it a couple times and get through it. Okay. Whereas, like I said, you literally just finished reading it before we started doing this.
And just so you know,
so you didn't let it sink in.
Yeah, really. And then with this book, again, it's prestige format.
Prestige format, $4.99, but 48 pages of solid story art, and then the Rick Remender interview in the back, and then some really great sketchbook stuff. I mean, this art is beautiful, and
it's $4.99. Where if you got a prestige format book from Marvel or DC, those are typically $7.99
or $5.99.
$5.99.
I think that Lobo one was like $5.99.
$5.99. So you're getting a pretty good value here.
I mean, this is the same price as the fucking New Avengers and Dark Avengers annuals. Right. Right. And
it's all original material.
It's all original material.
Right. So I'm gonna explain how an independent like Radical can do this, and yet the Marvel can't. Man. All right, so let's bring this rambling review to an end.
Yeah, it was kind of rambling. But just the last thing I want to say, if you like Criminal, buy this book, because you will like this book. Because I actually buy Criminal, and I love Criminal, and this is right up there with it.
I still think you can use a little tighter focus, but that's me. When we come back, we'll have some more rants. Will they be last rants?
Maybe.
Maybe. We'll see you then.